Chancellor Bloomberg, President Lachemi, Provost Benarok, deans, honored guests, esteemed colleagues, thank you so much for bestowing this incredible honor on me. And thank you, Dean Botrijani, for those wonderful words. I find it very important that the ceremony today is being held in the former Maple Leaf Gardens. I know I'm not alone when I share my memories of concerts, games, shows in this wonderful place, and how appropriate it is that, in fact, this public space stays in the public realm. So thank you, Ryerson, for that. To you, the graduating class of 2018, congratulations on your marvelous achievements, and I'm so very honored to be sharing this wonderful day with you, your family, and your friends. I will use my short time, and I promise to be short because I know that there's a party out there that's waiting to happen. I want to use this short time to touch on matters of identity. Each one of us has a unique identity, but identities, like our unique DNA, tend to shift over time, unlike DNA, and this is certainly true for me. I think of myself more and more as a global citizen, but this sensibility has been influenced by a series of accidents in my life. Some happy accidents and some not so much, but regardless, they have made me who I am. It was actually an accident that led me to leave India and study in Europe. It was a complete accident that I met my future life partner there while on a hike in the Alps, and it was therefore a resulting accident that we decided to try life in Iran, where he was from. And like many in this room, it was an accident, albeit a very, very happy one, that I became a Canadian. I received a very important piece of advice on day 2 of my arrival all those many years ago, and I was urged to change my name. The advice came from a role model, someone I looked up to. He had a secure career, a home, great connections in the Canadian scene. He was someone whose life I desperately wanted to emulate. So I took his advice very seriously, and this is what he said to me. He said, "Your name is too foreign, too strange, too unfamiliar for Canadian ears. People will not remember it or you, and worse, you will never get a job interview." Well, that took me for a loop. We had just arrived in a new world, so I thought seriously about it for a week. So for 1 week, for every day of that 1 week, I had a different name, and my family was instructed to call me Rosa one day, Rita the next day, and Rona the last day. But in the end, as you can see, I simply could not give up my name, because it is so much part of my identity. I could no sooner give it up than I could choose to change the color of my skin. So as you can see, I have kept my name, and I wear it proudly. It is a name with history attached to it, some personal and some global. My first name is from India and was given to me by my grandmother. And my second name is from Iran, where I lived for the 5 most exciting and turbulent years of my life, just before and just after the Islamic Revolution. And like so many ordinary citizens at that time, we actually did not think that the revolution would touch our ordinary lives. But then, one night it did, and we had to very quickly pack our bags and flee the country with our little infant daughter. And since all air routes had been bombed out, we spent 2 long days on a bus that took us to the northern border of Iran, which borders Turkey. And one moment, I will always remember this one moment over all others. We found ourselves in a small square room, smaller than this, I would say, on the border between Iran and Turkey. And on one side of the room was a portrait of Ayatollah Khomeini, and that was Iran. And on the other side of the room was a portrait of Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, and that was Turkey, the founder of the Turkish Republic, and that's where we wanted to get. We were very cold, we were very afraid, and we were very tired, and we wanted very desperately to get over to the other side. And frankly, we were telling whatever good lies we could to get there. We did not tell the guards about the little bit of money we were smuggling out, And we did not tell the guards that, of course, our papers were not quite kosher. But we did get over to the other side, and we were fortunate enough to enter Canada as permanent residents. And it was a bit like winning the lottery, but the first years were not easy. We had to learn and unlearn many rules. There were written rules, and there were often as many more important unwritten rules than there were written rules. It took us time to figure out that Canadians are a very polite people, and this politeness sometimes can get in the way of clarity. We learned that the safest topic of conversation is the weather, and that asking someone where they live, how much they paid for their car, or worst of all, how much money they made, were all cardinal offenses of a particularly Canadian kind. So I'm inclined to think about our country through a particular lens. I don't think of it as a perfect country, but as a gloriously imperfect one. We are a nation that is still coming to grips with our racist past, particularly as we struggle to find truth in reconciliation with our Indigenous peoples. But we are also a people that greatly identify with waves of immigrants. So think of our history for a moment. First the Scots, then the French, followed by waves of Ukrainians, Poles, Russians, Germans, Mennonites, Italians, during and after the First and Second World War, followed by the Britishers, the Hungarians, the Jews, the Ismailis, then the Indo-Chinese, followed yet again by the Iranians, the Sri Lankans, the Indians, the Somalis, the Chinese, and the Philippines, and I'm sure I'm forgetting a few. When will this end, people may ask? And the answer is, of course, never. And that is not the problem. In fact, it is the answer. No wonder then that philosopher Pico Iyer has said this of Canada: we have a global soul. Not surprisingly, your generation is in fact quite comfortable with different expressions of this ever-evolving identity. The Toronto Star predicted many years ago that your generation would be just as comfortable watching Hollywood or Bollywood, eating sushi or samosa, or cheering baseball, hockey, soccer, or cricket. But you all must know as well that Canada has a sense of shared collectivism that transcends individual interests. And that is what holds us together, and that is our authenticity. I, for one, am very grateful that there is no single Canadian identity. It sets us apart as a constantly evolving work in progress and never a finished product. I believe this allows and enables Canada to do two things. First, embrace the future with curiosity and confidence. And second, it enables us to look back in the past, acknowledge where we have gone wrong, and attempt to set things right. So as you graduate, consider the imprint you can have on this identity. No one life will ever be like another, but I hope there are some lessons in my life that you can tuck into the back of yours. So first, I will urge you to be authentic. Keep your names, wear them proudly, correct their pronunciation at every opportunity. And of course, you know that I am using names as a proxy for identity. You will be challenged at many times in your life to mold yourself into something other than who you are. And I urge you not to give in to that temptation, because knowing who you are is the foundation of individual resilience. Second, be nimble, and this is not a contradiction. You may know where your journey is going to take you, but do not fixate on the exact path. There's a personal GPS inside each one of you. So when one path does not work out, switch on the GPS and let you go and search behind closed doors and windows and embrace risk without being worried about making mistakes. I will always think that I have actually learned more from failures than from success. And a life without accidents, and I don't mean accidents of the physical kind, would be pretty dull. Third, look beyond our borders. Canada attracts thousands of foreign students every year, but very few Canadian students see similar opportunities to study outside our borders. Ask one of the many foreign students here today. They will tell you there is no better way of learning openness than through travel, meeting new people, experiencing a different way of life, and learning a new language. In my life, I have learned many new languages, and I believe that when you learn a new language, you are able to peer into the soul of a culture. And I hope many of you have your backpacks packed, ready to go, because there's nothing quite like hitting the road to give you perspective. So go out and stretch your global soul. And finally, I urge you to pay it forward. I have been fortunate in my life to have been helped by many good people here. The women who took a risk on me and gave me my first job, even when I had a strange name and I had no Canadian experience and foreign credentials and all of that, they set me on my path. I cannot do anything for them, but I can reach out to those who come after me. There will be a time in your life when you will be given the opportunity to pave the way for someone else. Grab this with both your hands. And for me, this opportunity came in the form of the sponsorship program for refugees that Ryerson University launched 3 years ago. And I joined a team and helped to sponsor 2 Syrian refugee families through Ryerson Lifeline Syria. As you may have heard from the introduction, I have worn many, many hats in my life. I have been a refugee, a change maker, an activist, and now a senator. But when I reflect on all my experiences, there is not a single doubt in my mind that helping 16 individuals escape the horrors of displacement and watch them slowly but surely become Canadian, this is the best thing I have ever done. So go forth into this brave new world, embrace it, change it, rock it. Thank you.